The car boot is open. The tartan blanket is half unfolded on a patch of scrubby grass beside the A39. Your dad is wrestling with a windbreaker that refuses to stand up, and your mum is pulling Tupperware out of a cool bag like a magician pulling rabbits from a hat. But it is not rabbits. It is food. Strange food. Food that no other nation on Earth would consider eating on a cliff top in horizontal rain while pretending to enjoy themselves. This is the British summer picnic, and your mum packed it with military precision. Number 8 on this list was in every single cool bag in Britain between 1985 and 2002, and nobody has ever explained why. Number 3 is genuinely baffling, and yet millions of children ate it without complaint every July. And the number 1 entry is so weird that if you described it to someone from any other country, they would think you were making it up. Before we start, hit that subscribe button, because this list is about to unlock memories you forgot you had. Let us count down the 20 weirdest foods your mum packed for a British summer picnic. Number 20. Hard-boiled eggs in cling film. Nothing said British picnic quite like a hard-boiled egg wrapped tightly in cling film, with a tiny twist of salt folded into a scrap of kitchen roll beside it. Your mum would have boiled half a dozen that morning, peeled them while they were still warm, and wrapped each one individually like little white grenades. By the time you reached the picnic spot, the eggs had sweated inside the cling film, creating that distinctive rubbery smell that hit you the moment the bag was opened. The salt was always in the twist. That was the system. You would unwrap the egg, dip it into the salt, and eat it in 3 bites, while seagulls circled overhead like tiny vultures. Sometimes the yolk had gone grey-green around the edges, chalky and dry, but nobody complained because your mum had been up since 7 preparing this feast. A dozen eggs cost less than £1. They travelled well, they filled you up, and they required 0 cutlery. For a generation of British children, the taste of summer was sulphur and salt on a windy beach. Number 19. Sandwich spread sandwiches. Heinz sandwich spread was the picnic filling that nobody asked for, but everybody got. A jar of that mysterious pale green relish, dotted with tiny cubes of vegetable so small they could not be identified by the human eye, was spread thickly onto white bread and cut into triangles. The taste was somewhere between sweet pickle and confusion. But it was cheap. It lasted for weeks in the fridge, and it did not spoil in a warm car boot the way ham did. A jar cost about 40 pence in 1989. The trick was the bread. Thick sliced white, never brown, because brown bread at a picnic was considered eccentric at best. By lunchtime, the sandwiches had gone slightly damp from the spread soaking through, creating that telltale translucent patch on the bread that every child of the 80s remembers with a shudder. Yet millions of jars were sold every summer. Someone was eating this. That someone was your mum, standing by the car boot with a cup of tea from the flask, eating a sandwich spread triangle with the expression of a woman who had earned this moment. Number 18. Scotch eggs from the petrol station. The Scotch egg occupied a unique position in the British picnic hierarchy. Too fancy for a packed lunch, too humble for a dinner party, but absolutely essential for any roadside stop between June and September. Your mum would pick up a 2-pack from the petrol station while your dad filled the car, and they would appear on the blanket like trophies. The sausage meat was always slightly grey, the breadcrumb coating a shade of orange found nowhere in nature, and the egg inside had that familiar grey-green ring around the yolk. None of this mattered. You ate it with your hands, tearing through the crunchy shell to the dense pork beneath, while wasps circled the open Tupperware. A 2-pack cost about £1.20. For that, you got protein, carbohydrate, fat, and a small existential crisis about why the egg was always slightly off-center. The Scotch egg asked nothing of you except hunger. It was portable, it was filling, and it required no preparation beyond the act of purchasing. Number 17. Cold sausages from the morning fry-up. Every family had the system. Your mum would cook extra sausages at breakfast, deliberately, without telling anyone, and set them aside on a plate covered with kitchen roll. By midday, those sausages had cooled to room temperature and been slipped into a sandwich bag for the picnic. Cold, slightly greasy, with that firm snap when you bit through the skin, they were the secret weapon of the summer cool bag. Children fought over them. The cold sausage was currency at the picnic blanket. You could trade one for a packet of crisps or half a Kit Kat. Some families used proper butcher's sausages. Others used Richmond Thin, which were essentially tubes of seasoned optimism. A pack of 8 Richmonds cost about £1 in 1992. The genius was that they required no bread, no plate, no cutlery. You just held them and ate. Like a savage. Like a British child on holiday. Number 16. Dairily triangles. Those little foil-wrapped wedges of processed cheese appeared at every single British picnic from 1970 onwards, with the reliability of rain in August. Your mum would toss a box of 8 into the cool bag, and children would spend more time peeling the foil than eating the cheese. The trick was to peel it cleanly in one piece, which nobody ever managed, leaving tiny shards of silver foil embedded in the soft, white cheese. Dairily was not cheese in any meaningful sense. It was a cheese-adjacent substance, smooth and bland and vaguely sweet, designed specifically for children who claimed to hate every other cheese on earth. A box cost about 60 pence. The triangles traveled without refrigeration for hours, never melting, never hardening, existing in a state of permanent processed limbo. For millions of British children, Dairily triangles were not food. They were ritual. You peeled, you ate, you asked for another one, and your mum said no, because there were only 8, and your brother had already had 3. Number 15. Pork pies with that weird jelly. The pork pie arrived at the picnic wrapped in grease-proof paper, sometimes from the butcher, sometimes from the reduced section at Tesco, but always with that mysterious layer of jelly between the meat and the pastry. That jelly was the great divider of British picnic culture. Half the country scraped it out with a finger and flicked it onto the grass. The other half ate it with the quiet determination of people who refused to waste food. A decent pork pie cost about 70 pence in the early 90s, and a family-sized one could stretch to 6 slices if your mum cut carefully. The pastry was thick and golden, designed to survive transportation in a warm car boot without collapsing. Your mum would cut it on the blanket using a bread knife wrapped in a tea towel, and the slices would fan out on a paper plate like a tiny edible Stonehenge. Nobody at any point questioned why we were eating cold meat in jelly on a beach in Dorset. It was simply what was done. Number 14. Penguin bars and club biscuits. No British picnic was complete without the pudding course, and that pudding was always a biscuit bar in a wrapper. The penguin was chocolate-coated, biscuit-filled, and it came with a joke on the wrapper so bad it made your dad laugh and your mum sigh. The club was heavier and denser, offered flavors like orange and mint that nobody under the age of 40 had actually requested. A multi-pack of either cost about £1, making them the cheapest dessert your mum could pack without resorting to actual fruit. The wrappers blew across the picnic site in the wind, catching on gorse bushes and car aerials. The biscuit itself was always slightly soft by the time you ate it, warmed by the inside of the cool bag, which was never as cool as the name suggested. But that soft, half-melted chocolate smeared across your fingers was the taste of a British summer afternoon. Number 13. Cheese and pineapple on cocktail sticks. This was the picnic food that revealed your mum had ambitions. While other families were eating crisps from the bag, your mum had spent 20 minutes that morning cutting cheddar into cubes and opening a tin of pineapple chunks, then skewering them together on cocktail sticks and standing them upright in half a grapefruit covered in tin foil. The grapefruit hedgehog, the edible centerpiece of the 1980s. British picnic. The cheese was always Cathedral City or a supermarket own brand. The pineapple was always tinned, never fresh, because fresh pineapple at a picnic was the kind of continental behavior that made neighbors talk. The combination of sharp cheddar and sweet, slightly metallic pineapple should not have worked. But eaten outdoors on a stick, while your mum beamed with quiet pride, it worked beautifully. The cocktail sticks were a hazard. Children stabbed fingers, stabbed siblings, and occasionally stabbed the blanket. But the cheese and pineapple hedgehog endured across decades, proof that the British picnic was as much about presentation as it was about survival. Number 12. Tinned salmon sandwiches with vinegar. When your mum opened a tin of John West pink salmon for the picnic sandwiches, she was making a statement. This was not an ordinary Tuesday. Tinned salmon cost about £1.20 in 1988, nearly 3 times the price of sandwich spread, making it the luxury filling of the cool bag. She would fork the salmon into a bowl, mash it with a splash of malt vinegar and a crack of black pepper, then spread it onto buttered bread. The vinegar was essential. Without it, tinned salmon tasted flat and metallic. With it, the fish came alive, sharp and rich, and somehow sophisticated despite being mashed from a tin onto mother's pride. The sandwiches were always wrapped in cling film so tight they went slightly flat, the bread compressing around the filling until the whole thing resembled a savory pillow. Children who normally refused fish at home ate these without complaint, perhaps because the outdoors made everything taste different, or perhaps because complaining earned you no penguin bar. Number 11. Babybel cheese. Those little red wax-coated spheres of cheese appeared in British picnic bags from the mid-1980s onwards, and the wax became instantly more interesting than the cheese. Children peeled the red coating in one piece, molding it into tiny balls and rudimentary sculptures, while the actual cheese sat forgotten on the blanket. A net bag of 6 cost about £1.50. The cheese inside was mild, rubbery, and almost entirely without character, which was precisely why children loved it. Your mum packed Babybels because they were individually wrapped and could survive several hours in a warm car without becoming dangerous. The wax casings littered British beaches throughout the 1990s. Tiny red shells washed up alongside seaweed and lost flip-flops. Nobody ever finished a Babybel and said it was delicious. But nobody ever left one uneaten either. It was the Switzerland of picnic foods. Number 10. Peanut butter sandwiches that had welded shut. Sunpat, or own-brand peanut butter, spread onto white bread and left in a warm bag for 3 hours. Created something that modern material science would struggle to replicate. The bread and peanut butter fused into a single substance, neither fully bread nor fully spread, but a hybrid material that required genuine jaw strength to eat. The sandwich could not be opened to inspect. It had bonded. Your mum made these because peanut butter did not spoil, did not smell, and did not require refrigeration. A jar of Sunpat cost about 80 pence and lasted the entire summer. The taste was sweet, salty, and overwhelmingly thick. The kind of food that made you desperately need a drink halfway through, at which point you discovered the squash had gone warm and tasted faintly of plastic from the flask. The peanut butter sandwich was the reliable backbone of the British picnic, present at every outing, never celebrated, always consumed. Number 9. Cocktail sausages from a jar. Ye Old Oak or supermarket-owned brand cocktail sausages packed in brine in a glass jar were the wild card of the British picnic. Your mum would unscrew the lid, fish the tiny sausages out with a fork, and arrange them on a paper plate where they glistened wetly like something recovered from a laboratory. They were soft, pink, and tasted of salt and processed pork in roughly equal measure. Children ate them by the fistful, not because they were good, but because they were small enough to eat in one bite. A jar cost about 70 pence and contained enough miniature sausages to feed a family of 4, with some left over for the dog. The brine was the real mystery. Your mum would pour it onto the grass, where it killed a small circle of vegetation, creating a tiny dead patch that marked the spot of every British family picnic. These sausages have no equivalent in any other country's picnic tradition. Number 8. The flask of warm squash. Every mum packed drinks, and every mum got it wrong. The orange squash went into a flask or a plastic bottle that had been rinsed, but not quite thoroughly enough, giving the drink a faint ghost of whatever had been in there before. By lunchtime, the squash was lukewarm, slightly diluted by melted ice from the cool bag, and had developed that peculiar plastic taste that only warm Robinsons in a reused bottle can achieve. Nobody wanted it. Everybody drank it. Because the alternative was nothing. A bottle of Robinson's orange barley water cost about £1.20 and lasted most of the summer. Your mum diluted it weaker than the label suggested because the label was for normal people, and she was stretching it across 6 weeks of day trips. The result was orange-tinted water with a memory of fruit, served in cups that never quite sealed. Yet that warm, plasticky squash is one of the most universal sense memories of British childhood. Mention it to anyone who grew up in the 80s or 90s and watch their face change. They can taste it right now. Number 7. Piccalilli with cold meat. Your mum's Piccalilli game said everything about her picnic philosophy. Some families brought a jar of Haywards and a knife. Others brought it pre-dolloped onto plates covered in cling film, next to slices of cold ham. Piccalilli was the condiment that made no visual sense. Bright yellow, studded with chunks of cauliflower, gherkin and onion, it looked like something a child had made in art class. But the taste was sharp, mustardy, and utterly essential for cutting through the blandness of cold sliced ham eaten on a blanket overlooking the sea. A jar cost about £1 and lasted multiple picnics. Piccalilli at a picnic was about identity. It separated the families who packed condiments from the families who did not, and in the unspoken social hierarchy of the National Trust car park, that distinction mattered. Number 6. Spam sandwiches. Spam arrived in Britain during the war and never quite left, lingering in larders and lunchboxes for decades after the last ration book was stamped. Your mum would slide the block out of the tin using the key attached to the bottom, that tiny metal key you had to twist carefully, or the strip of metal snapped and you were left attacking the tin with a fork. She would slice the spam thin, lay it on buttered bread, and sometimes add a smear of mustard for what she called a bit of zing. The taste was salty, dense, and faintly sweet in a way that no fresh meat could replicate. A tin cost about 60 pence in 1990, and it could fill 6 sandwiches if sliced with the determination of a woman feeding 4 children on 1 income. Spam sandwiches were not a choice. They were a solution. They survived heat, survived transport, survived the dog sitting on the cool bag. They were indestructible. And for a generation of British children, the taste of spam on white bread, eaten on a windswept headland while your mum told you this was lovely, was the taste of summer. Number 5. Mr. Kipling French Fancies. The French fancy was the closest thing the British picnic had to actual patisserie. Those small, dome-shaped sponge cakes with their smooth fondant coating in pink, yellow, or white sat in their plastic tray like tiny pastel jewels. Your mum would buy a box from Tesco for about £1.50, and they would appear at the picnic as the final course, the grand finale, the reason you had eaten your sandwich spread sandwich without complaint. Children chose by color, not flavor, because the flavor was identical across all three. The fondant cracked slightly when you bit through it, giving way to a thin layer of buttercream and a soft, sweet sponge that dissolved on the tongue. They were impossibly delicate for a picnic food, and your mum would carry the box flat on the back seat to prevent damage. The French fancy was aspiration in a paper case. It said your mum believed a picnic could be elegant, even if it was raining, and your dad was sitting in the car with the engine running because the wind was too strong. Mr. Kipling made exceedingly good cakes, the advert said, and at that moment, biting through pink fondant while the English Channel churned grey behind you, it felt entirely true. Number 4. Banana sandwiches. This is the entry that sorts British people from the rest of the world. White bread, butter, sliced banana, mashed slightly, eaten at a picnic while it slowly turns brown inside the cling film. The banana sandwich was the food that British children ate without ever questioning its existence, only to discover years later that most other countries consider it genuinely bizarre. Your mum made them because bananas were cheap, about 20 pence each in the early 90s, and because they counted as one of your 5 a day, which meant she could pack biscuits without guilt. By lunchtime, the banana had oxidized to a grayish brown, the bread had absorbed the moisture, and the whole sandwich had taken on the consistency of a warm, sweet poultice. It should have been revolting. It was magnificent. Some families added sugar, some added honey. The banana sandwich required no refrigeration, no condiments, and no explanation. It said, "We are here, we are hungry, and this is what we have." And somehow, eaten outdoors with grass stains on your knees and sand in your socks, it was enough. Number 3. Sugar sandwiches. Here is where it gets genuinely strange. White bread, butter, granulated sugar. That was it. That was the sandwich. Your mum made these when the picnic supplies ran thin, when the budget would not stretch to filling, or simply because her mum had made them and her mum before that. Sugar sandwiches were not a recipe. They were a tradition, passed down through working-class families like a sweet, crunchy heirloom. The butter held the sugar in place, the bread provided structure, and the crunch of granulated sugar between your teeth was a sensation that no modern snack has ever replicated. A bag of Tate and Lyle cost about 40 pence and could fill sandwiches for a month. The point was not nutrition. The point was that your mum could produce something sweet from nothing, a treat conjured from ingredients that were always in the cupboard. To describe a sugar sandwich to someone who did not grow up with them is to watch disbelief cross their face in real time. But for millions of British children, it was pudding, packed into cling film and eaten on a blanket while the radio played from the open car door. Number 2. Marmite sandwiches gone completely soggy. The Marmite sandwich, in its ideal state, is a thing of beauty. A thin layer of butter, a thinner layer of Marmite, white bread, eaten immediately. But nobody ate a Marmite sandwich immediately at a picnic. Your mum made them at 8 in the morning. They went into cling film. They sat in the boot of the car for 3 hours on the M5 while the sun beat down and the traffic crawled. By lunchtime, the Marmite had migrated through the butter and into the bread, turning the entire sandwich into a soft, brown, intensely savory sponge. The structural integrity was gone. The bread peeled apart in damp sheets. And yet, this was comfort. This was the taste of home, compressed and transported and slightly ruined by the journey, but still unmistakably British. A jar of Marmite cost about £2 and lasted most of the year, making it the most economical picnic filling after sugar itself. The love it or hate it slogan was never more relevant than at a British picnic, where the soggy Marmite sandwich separated families into two irreconcilable camps, united only by the fact that they were all eating on a blanket in light drizzle and calling it a holiday. And finally, number 1. The warm, slightly squashed flask of tomato soup. This is it. The undisputed king of British picnic weirdness. It is the middle of July. The temperature is 22 degrees. The sun is shining for the first time in 3 weeks, and your mum has packed a flask of hot Heinz tomato soup. Not cold gazpacho, not a refreshing drink. Hot soup. In summer. At a picnic. She heated it on the hob that morning, poured it carefully into the thermos, and wrapped it in a tea towel for insulation. By lunchtime, the soup had cooled to that precise lukewarm temperature where it was too hot to drink quickly, but too cool to feel like a proper hot meal. It came out of the flask in a thin orange stream, poured into those little plastic cups that always burned your fingers and never held quite enough. The taste was sweet, tangy, and unmistakably Heinz. Never homemade. A tin cost about 40p, and it served 4 cups if your mum poured carefully. Eaten outdoors, on a cliff top, in a car park, or on a bench in a town that was technically on the coast, that lukewarm tomato soup was transcendent. It was your mum's answer to everything. Cold? Soup. Hungry? Soup. Bored? Soup. The flask of tomato soup was not food. It was love. Poured through a plastic cup on a day when the whole family pretended the weather was fine. No other country does this. No other country packs hot soup for a summer picnic. But your mum did, every single time. And she was right. The British picnic was never about the food. It was about the stubborn, glorious refusal to let weather, budget, or common sense get in the way of a day out. Your mum packed the cool bag, drove to the coast, and fed you strange things on a blanket while the wind blew sand into everything. Tell me in the comments which one your mum packed. I already know the answer is all of them.